Hello everyone, and a very warm welcome to our webinar today about sick pay and maternity pay in Sage 50 Payroll. This is one of our webinars to celebrate National Payroll Week, and if you attend at least 3 of our main sessions plus our quiz, you will qualify for a digital badge, and we're going to tell you a little bit more about earning that badge towards the end of the session. My name's Duncan, and as you can see, I am joined by my colleague Sarah, and we will be co-presenting the webinar today. Let's now take a look at what we'll cover in the webinar. So I'm going to start things off covering sick pay, or SSP, by providing an overview of statutory sick pay and the qualifying conditions, and then some demonstrations on how to record sickness details and to process SSP as part of your pay run. I'm then going to hand over to Sarah, who's going to run through maternity pay, again providing an overview of the main legislation and qualifying conditions, providing tips on recording the maternity details, and also explaining how you can reclaim statutory maternity pay at the end of each tax month. She's also going to recap how to adjust your employee's pay, including makeup basic and manual adjustments. And then we'll go on to explain what further support's out there, a little bit more information about the digital badge, and some time for you to ask any final questions or to look through the questions in the Q&A. So let's get things underway with a bit of an introduction to SSP. So SSP is short for statutory sick pay. Now this is a payment made by employers to their employees when they're unwell and unable to work. Now, many employers will pay more than the statutory sick pay rate if you have a company or occupational sick pay scheme, but we will be mainly focusing on statutory sick pay in the demonstrations today. Now, SSP is paid at a weekly rate set out in legislation, and for the current tax year, 2025 to 26, that rate is £118.75 per week. And it can be paid for up to 28 weeks in a period of incapacity to work. So that's the maximum amount of SSP you can pay for kind of an instance of sickness. Now we have linked to more information on eligibility and entitlement, but I'd like to run through the main qualifying conditions on the screen with you just now. So to qualify for statutory sick pay, employees must have an employment contract with you and have done some work under that contract. So if they ring in sick on their first day of work and they haven't completed any work, they wouldn't meet that condition. To get SSP, they do need to be off sick for 4 or more days in a row, and that can include non-working days. And this is known as a period of incapacity for work, or PIW for short. They also need to earn an average of at least £125 per week, and that average is taken in the period leading up to the first day of sickness. So either the 8-week set period, if they've worked for more than 8 weeks, or for any periods that they have worked up to the start of their absence. They also may need to give you proof of illness if they are off sick for more than 7 days. And they need to inform you within your own agreed timescale or within 7 days if you don't have a timescale. So they need to notify you of their sickness, and if they're off sick for more than 7 days, you can ask for proof of illness, which is usually a fit note, it's called these days, that they get from the doctor or similar. Now, a few of the general rules when it comes to processing SSP is that the SSP payment is only paid for an employee's qualifying days, and these are the days that the employee would normally work. So it could be their contracted days. You'd pay them the SSP on their normal pay date, the same way as wages. But the first 3 qualifying days that an employee is off sick are known as waiting days, and there is no SSP payment for those first days. So in essence, the statutory sick pay kicks in from the 4th qualifying day the employee is off sick. Now, a bit of an exception to that rule is if there are linked PIWs. So if an employee has been off sick and qualified for SSP, And after they return, they go off sick again within 8 weeks for at least 4 days. That would be classed as a linked PIW, and it is the length of time that links them. It doesn't need to be the same illness. So if you have a linked PIW, you don't have to serve the waiting days again. You still need to be off sick for 4 days in a row, but the SSP payment will be paid for all of those days in the linked period. So as it says there, the linked periods of sickness must be 4 days or longer to qualify. So that's how it currently works. But just to give you a bit of a heads up, the government are currently working on their employment rights bill. And in the latest update they've given on this, the timeline for a change to statutory sick pay is that it was expected to take effect from April 2026. So that's the start of the next tax year. Now, the proposed changes to SSP are to remove the waiting days, which would make SSP payable from the first day of sickness, and also to remove the average earnings requirement. So they won't have to be earning at least £125 in that set period. So that would kind of open up SSP to pretty much all employees, regardless of what they earn. It also means that the rate of SSP can vary. So it would either be the standard fixed rate of SSP, currently £118.75, or 80% of an employee's average weekly earnings. So whichever of those is lower. So some of these changes are still being consulted on, but as I say, the government has set out a timeline. We expect this to take effect from April 2026, and rest assured that any changes of this nature to SSP legislation will be built in to a software update that we will provide ahead of the go live date for any change. But just something to be aware of, and you can read more in the link we've provided. So that's enough about the legislation. I'd like to take you through some of the practical steps involved in recording and processing SSP in your software. So in the demo, I'm going to show you 2 different ways you can record sickness. The traditional route, and the way that I prefer personally, is to record all of the absences for sickness within the absence diary. And that way you'll see some absent entries on the particular dates that the employee is off sick. But there is also a quick SSP screen where all of the absence details can be entered in one place, which might be quite useful for setting up SSP for the first time, rather than sort of continuing a spell of sickness for an employee currently off sick. Now, you will see in the demo when we come to record absence on the absence diary, it will make certain entries on the dates of sickness. To explain what the different symbols are, a letter X will represent a waiting day. A letter P would be a qualifying day where SSP is paid. A dash would be a non-qualifying day. And a red letter A indicates a sickness absence of less than 4 days in a row. And then a pink W is SSP withheld. And waiting days and paid SSP days only fall on qualifying days. So it will reference the qualifying day pattern, so the working pattern that's been set up in the employee's record. So let's bring some of this to life for you by giving you a demo. So I'm just going to bring the slides down. And for today's demo, I am working with a monthly payroll, but all of these setup steps are exactly the same for any other pay frequency. I've already set my next pay date. It's going to be the 30th of September for my monthly paid employees. And I'm going to show you how I would set up SSP for an employee who's gone off sick kind of the first time. So there's actually 2 ways you could do it. I will show you the quick SSP screen first. So I'm just going to select an employee who has been off sick this month. And if you take a look in the links section, just under your payroll tasks, you'll see there is a link for recording sickness. Now, you're going to find the same link if you choose the employee tasks on the left-hand side. And when you click onto this, it takes you into the quick SSP screen. And this is where you can start to record the kind of initial dates of sickness. So for this particular employee, they've rang in sick for the first time on Monday, the 1st of September. They've also given me a fit note, which confirms they're going to be off sick until Friday, the 12th of September. So it's a sickness lasting more than 7 days. So I've asked for the fit note, they've provided that. And having entered the dates of sickness, you can see that the quick SSP screen is confirming details such as the qualifying day pattern, the average earnings that are calculated in the period up to the 1st of September, and then the SSP entitlement due, which for this period of time is 166.25. So if you are setting up from here, you can adjust the qualifying day pattern by clicking on the qualifying days button. You can also overwrite the average earnings calculated if needed, or see how they've been calculated by clicking on earnings during set period. Now, the current qualifying day pattern here, an N, 5 Qs in an N, represents normal working days of Monday to Friday. If we needed to change it from here, we can select a different qualifying day pattern, or you can type in your own pattern, and it can last more than 1 week using a combination of N's and Q's. So it just seems to have kicked us out there. So I'm just going to log back in to Payroll. That is the quick SSP screen. But what I will move on to next is showing you how to enter this directly in the employee record. So if I had got to the point where I could save that quick SSP screen, it would have already recorded the entries on the absence diary. We'll take a quick look once I'm logged back in to see if it's done that. There we go. So just going into employee 8, clicking on the absence tab, and actually it has recorded it. So you can see this combination of X's and P's. So the X's being the first 3 waiting days, and the P's being days where SSP are payable. And a couple of dashes that you're seeing on the diary here are for the non-qualifying days. Now, I'm actually going to delete this sickness. An easy way to do this is from the absence diary, you can select all of the entries. I've clicked and dragged to do that. Selected from the 1st to the 12th. I can then right click and select none and save the record. And then if I want to re-record that absence or record different dates, I can either use the diary entry option, or again, I can click and drag the dates on the diary. Now, the other thing to do, if you need to, is to check the qualifying day pattern. So from the absence tab, if you click SSP, you'll actually find the qualifying days section here. So I've just got a standard Monday to Friday pattern just here. You can choose any other pattern in this list, or you can enter your own by simply typing N's and Q's on the relevant days, along with the pattern start date for patterns that last more than 1 week. So I'm going to stick with the standard one, and then we'll just re-record that dates of sickness. So I will use diary entry this time. So the absence type, if you use diary entry, is SSP, and then sickness. And I'm going to simply enter the first and last day of sickness and any comment that I might want to record. Fit note received. And you can see again, it's added the absence entries, and they will be used to calculate the SSP due. So quick look at what that looks like in enter payments. So if I select the enter payments option just for this individual, you can see currently I've got the full salary entered, so we will need to adjust that due to the employee being off sick. But to check the SSP, select the SSP parental leave tab. You'll see the same diary entries. You'll see the SSP payable, 166.25, and the equivalent in weeks, which is 1.4. So 1.4 times 118.75 is the weekly rate of SSP, is the amount that will be paid for these 2 weeks off sick. And then all I would need to do is to make an adjustment. So if you do have a company sick pay scheme, You want your employee to receive their full basic. On the summary tab, you could use the make up basic option. Or if you want to manually adjust the salary, you do a manual calculation, work out what you want to pay them for the days they've worked this month, either adjusting the hours or the rate value, and that would reduce the salary accordingly. But Sarah's going to go into a bit more detail on adjusting payments later on in the webinar. So that's my sickness recorded. Just while we're here, I just want to highlight a couple of scenarios that you might come across when recording sickness. So I have an employee who's been off sick long term, and they've actually reached 28 weeks of sickness in their PIW. So if I go into enter payments for that particular employee and check the SSP parental leave tab, you'll see that the diary entries for August switched from the P's, indicating paid SSP days, to the W's, where it's starting to be withheld. And the reason for this is they've reached the limit. If I haven't already done so, I need to make sure I issue an SSP1 form. They can then go on to claim another type of benefit from the government. And if you're in the employee record, if you ever need to check how many weeks of SSP have been paid in the PIW, just go to the absence tab, click SSP, and then check the previous PIW tab. So this employee's been off sick since February. They've used up the full 28 weeks. So we know that they now need to stop being paid SSP and claim something direct from the government. One other scenario to show you, and this is for an employee where less than 4 days of sickness have been recorded. So again, in enter payments, I'll just take you to the SSP tab. Now actually this is an absence that lasted a full, just over a week, from Wednesday to Wednesday, but it's showing as red A's. And the problem that we have here is that when the absence has been recorded, it has only been recorded on the employee's normal working days. And that means it's not a continuous absence of 4 days or more, so it hasn't formed a PIW. So that is why no SSP is being calculated. And all I would need to do to correct that is to select the full spell of sickness. So from the 3rd to the 10th, I can right click the absence diary, go to SSP due to sickness. And once I've done that and included the non-qualifying days, we've got 3 waiting days served and 3 days of paid SSP. So something to watch out for if you are seeing those red A's. Now, statutory sick pay appears as a separate line on the pay slip. Oh, sorry, I'll go into my pre-update reports for that one. You may have seen this before if you've processed SSP. So you can see there's my adjusted salary that I manually adjusted, plus the statutory sick pay for the first employee. And again, for the second employee, I've not got around to adjusting the salary yet. You can see the sick pay appears separately. And once you've done all of your pay slips and reports and you've completed your pay run by running update records, which I'm just going to do now, I just want to highlight that the daily entries do slightly change to indicate that this is historical sickness now. It's been updated, so I wouldn't be able to delete or overwrite this, but I can add to that absence. So if, for example, I need to extend it on my next pay date, I can continue recording sickness for any dates after the historical sickness. So historical and current, anything current can be edited. Anything historical can't be, unless you were to restore a backup or roll back. But we won't have time to go into that today. So that's your demo on statutory sick pay, recording the details in Sage. Just a quick recap of the absence entries. So lowercase is current, uppercase is historical. Your main ones are the X's, the P's, and the dashes. And then we've just seen there, within enter payments, it is possible to edit or delete any current sickness entries. So you could add more, change the dates. You'll be able to check the SSP payable and the number of weeks that relates to. And then, of course, don't forget to do your adjustments to other pay. Alternatively, use Makeup Basic. Sarah's going to cover that in a bit more detail shortly. So that's it from my section. But I would now like to pass you over to Sarah, and she's going to run us through statutory maternity pay. So it's over to you.
Thanks so much for that, Duncan. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to look at an introduction to statutory maternity pay. So what is statutory maternity pay? SMP is paid by employers to employees when they take time off work to have a baby. So SMP just stands for your statutory maternity pay. Now, there are two different rates of SMP, so they do get a total of 39 weeks, and that is split out into 6 weeks at a higher rate. So that will be 90% of their average weekly earnings. And then the remaining 33 weeks is at a standard rate. So that would be £187.18 per week this current tax year, or 90% of their average weekly earnings. So if that 90% is lower, it will just be the lower of the two that they would get. We'll take a little look at eligibility. So employees have to be on your payroll in the qualifying week. So your qualifying week is the 15th week before the expected week of childbirth. Now, there are a lot of different key dates with maternity, but don't worry, on the next slide, we will go through a bit of a timeline of where they all fall. Now, the employee also has to give you the correct notice for the maternity, and that again is 15 weeks before the baby is expected. So they have to tell you the date that the baby is due and the date that they want to start their maternity leave. Now, they can change those dates, but they do need to give you 28 days notice for that. And you do want to confirm their leave start and end date in writing within 28 days. But if you download the handouts today, we do have some really handy links on this page that will give you more information from HMRC on that. They also have to give you proof that they're pregnant. So that's going to most likely come in the form of a MAP B1 form, which you'll also use to enter the information in to the employee record in the payroll. They have to be continuously employed by you for at least 26 weeks up to any day in the qualifying week. So that'll be one to look out for the start date. Have they worked for you long enough? And again, they do have to earn at least £125 a week in the 8-week relevant period. So what is the relevant period? That's going to be the 8 weeks prior to the qualifying week. And that will be where it works out, right, are they earning enough to actually be eligible? And that will also be used for that first higher rate payment, so first 6 weeks. So let's take a look at a bit of a timeline of the different key dates. So you have your due date. So that's also known as expected week of confinement. You might see that terminology on the MAP B1 form. Now, 15 weeks before that, you have your qualifying week. So that's 15 weeks before the due date. Then you have your 26 weeks before that is when you start date. So it has to be at least 26 weeks before the qualifying week. If they've started later than that, then they wouldn't actually be eligible for SMP. You've then got your 8 weeks average earnings. So that's your set period or your relevant period. Now that's going to be calculated on the 8 weeks before and including the qualifying week. That's going to factor into, right, are they earning over the £125 in order to be eligible? And that's also going to be the 90% higher average earnings that they get for those first 6 weeks. You then have your earliest leave date, so that is 11 weeks before the due date. But you might get some employees that need to go on maternity a bit sooner. So if they're off with pregnancy-related sickness or if the baby comes early. Now, if they are off with pregnancy-related sickness, then that transfer to statutory maternity pay would be 4 weeks before the due date. So if they've went off with maternity-related sickness, say 10 weeks before, and they're still like that 4 weeks before the due date, then you would make that transfer from SSP to SMP at that point. So with any parental payments, you can actually reclaim those from HMRC. Most employers are going to be able to reclaim 92% at least. However, if you qualify for small employers relief, you can claim a bit extra back. So that's actually went up this year. You can now reclaim 108.5% back. So if you're not 100% sure if you qualify for this, it would be if your class 1 national insurance is less than 45,000, so 45 grand or less in the tax year before the qualifying week. So in this tax year, you're going to be looking at last tax year, and I'll show you in the demo in a little bit a quick way to double check that if you're not entirely sure. Also got to remember to send your employer payment summary each month, just to inform HMRC that you have a little bit to claim back this time round, and that'll show on your P32. What I would say with the small employers relief as well is you do want to check this before you actually process anyone on a parental payment. Just it doesn't work retrospectively if you haven't had that box ticked already. So to avoid any corrections, it's always best to check first. What we'll do is we'll take a little look at recording maternity details, and then we'll jump into payroll for a demo and take a look at checking for small employers relief and how to record it in an employee record as well. So when you're recording your maternity details, there's a couple of things that you're definitely going to need. You're going to need the date your employee actually wants to start the maternity leave, so the last day of work. And you also do want your medical evidence as well. So that's going to come in the form of your MAP B1 form, which is going to have all of your key dates on there also. Now, there's a couple of different ways that you can record maternity in Sage 50 Payroll. So you can see we've got a bit of an example of the MAP B1 form on the left-hand side there. That's going to be provided to the employee by the doctor or midwife. You would then use that information that they've provided to enter the dates within payroll. So you can do that via Quick SMP, which is what we'll take a closer look at today. Can also do it through the employee record, which I will briefly show you where to find that as well. So let's jump into payroll to take a closer look at checking for our eligibility for our small employers relief and recording payment as well. So I'm just going to take a quick look at whether I'm eligible for small employers relief. So I actually want to check that before I start processing, because I don't want to have to go back and do any corrections. Now, the best way to check for that is we want to look at your previous tax year. So my employee is going to go on maternity this month. So I am going to change my processing date back to the 5th of April, 2025. Now that my date is changed back, I want to go into my reports, just above my employee list. And I want to look at my year-end 24-25 tax year. I'm then going to look for my Form P32 and go preview that. Will come up automatically just with your month 12 criteria, but I'm going to change that in month 1 because I want to look at my whole year. I want to look for my bill for my whole year. I just press OK on that. Just make that a little bit bigger. So you can see what you're looking for when you're checking for this is line number 4. You can see straight away I'm well under that 45,000, so I will be eligible for small employers relief. So I'm happy that I'm eligible. I'm just going to come out of my reports. I'm going to change my processing date back to 30th of September because that's when I'm going to be doing my next payroll. I just want to double check I've definitely got that flagged before I start processing. So I'm going to go into company, up into settings. You want to be on the details tab, and I want to check this tick box over on the right here. So I have flagged that I'm eligible, so I'm ready to go to start entering my maternity details. So I did mention earlier there are a couple different ways that you can enter the maternity details. It's employee number 4 that's going on maternity. Now you can go into the employee record, along to absence, and enter it in this window here. But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go back to payroll in the bottom left. I'm actually going to do it through my quick links. So I'm going to go into recording maternity. The reason why I'm going to do it like this today is you can actually print this page out. It'll give you a little bit more information and some key dates. It'll also break down the higher and standard rates as well. So it gives you quite a good bit of information to keep on record. Now I have my MAP B1 form, so I'm going to tick that I've got my medical evidence received and pop the expected date of birth in there. So expected date is 1st of October 2025. Then want to check my entitlement. So you can see straight away over on the right for qualifying conditions, we've got 3 green ticks on here, which is exactly what we want. So we've got our evidence, we've got our MAP B1, they've worked long enough, and they've also earned enough as well. Then want to go ahead and put my last day of work in. So they're actually going to finish on the 31st. Now I don't have the actual date of birth or the return to work date, so I can leave these blank for now. It will still calculate. Now, if the employee was off with pregnancy-related sickness, or if the baby came early, you would want to go into this special circumstances box here, where you can enter that further information. You can see now I've entered the last day of work. It's given me my breakdown of my higher rate and my standard rate in the bottom right as well. And I can always double check what earnings are included, so what payments that have been processed through that are included in the set period. And you've got a list of key dates as well. Again, you can print this off to keep on record because it will give you a really handy breakdown. So I'm going to save my maternity details for my employee now. And close. Another thing I would give as a bit of a top tip is if you go into your enter payments to check your maternity and it doesn't look quite right, just make sure your processing date is set to exactly what you want it. Any parental payments, any statutory payments will calculate up until your processing date. So if you've came in and out of payroll, it might be that the dates were set and that's why it doesn't quite look how you would expect. What I'm going to do now, I've got my date set. I'm just going to pop into enter payments to have a little look at my SMP amount. Easiest way to check this is by going across to the summary tab. And you can see there it is pulled through my statutory maternity pay. So if you do want a bit of a breakdown for that specific period, you can double click on the cell. It will bring you into the maternity pay from the record. If you go along to the entitlement tab, it will actually tell you exactly what it's paying out based off your processing date. So 4.29 weeks at the 2225.32, and that's exactly what matches here. Great, so that's it on the demo on recording the maternity pay and checking for your small employers relief. What we'll do is we'll just run through a little bit of a recap of that. So we have got our MAP-B1 form. Today we have used the quick SMP option to record the maternity. We also can go in through the absence tab of the employee record. What I would say is if you do want to double check on any details once the maternity is entered, I would recommend going in through the record. Just if you do go in through quick SMP, it will come up and ask if you want to overwrite the information. So it is quite easy to kind of go past that. So if you do want to double check on anything, maybe use the record instead would be my tip. We've then taken a little look at enter payments, where to check the figure and how to view the breakdown. What I'll do now is I'll jump into one last demo just to take a little bit of a look at adjusting the employee payments and also a look at the P32 and the EPS as well. So we're happy with the maternity that's pulled through. Now, I don't want to give her a full pay, I just want to top it up to the full amount. So top it up to the 2,500. No, Duncan touched on this earlier. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the makeup basic option to adjust my salary to take into account parental payment that we've put through. If I go into makeup basic, you can see to do this, we need to reduce the hours number value of salary, that is what we want to do. So if we hit on yes, you can see straight away it's reduced my pre-tax payments all the way down, compensate for the statutory maternity pay to give us our total of our 2,500. Now I'm happy with that. I can go ahead and update my records. And I'm going to take a little look at my P32. So you can see here, we've now got a figure in line number 6. And because we're eligible for small employers relief, we also have a figure in line number 7. You can see that we've got the compensation down at the bottom as well. What I'm going to do now is we do want to make sure we send an employer payment summary as well, so we can get that back from HMRC. Now you can do this from a couple different places. You can do that from your links, or you can do it from e-submissions and employer payment summary as well. Now I'm going to select that first option to adjust my payment because I'm recovering statutory payments. It will come up with your tax month and you can see it's then pulled through our maternity figures and our extra bit for our small employers relief. I'm just going to go through, I have nothing else to enter and finish. Now you won't get this, it's just because we're in a demo environment. Go ahead and get that submitted. So HMRC know exactly what it is I need to get back. So that's it on the demo for statutory maternity pay. We'll just do a little bit of a recap of what we've covered today. So we've looked at adjusted employee payments there. I've used the makeup basic option in my example. So you can see, you can click on that button and it will automatically reduce your salary. Or you could use your manual adjustment as well if you want to work out how much you need to pay, or even if they've went off maybe mid-month as well, rather than at the start of the month. To finish up, what we'll do is we'll run through some further support. So as you all know, it is National Payroll Week this week. So we're on to session 3 out of 5 today, and we'll be looking at pensions a little bit later. So make sure to get signed up for that if you haven't already. That's at 2 p.m. Remember, you do need to attend 3 sessions plus the quiz tomorrow to get your digital badge. They'll be sent out by the end of the month as well. If you're a little bit late this time round, don't worry, we are repeating these sessions next week, so make sure to get signed up for those when you can. Did want to mention the Help Centre as well. That is a really great resource. You can get that by clicking the help icon in Sage 50 Payroll, or you can access it via the web at sage.co.uk/help. You can also access technical support guides on here. We've got our on-demand webinars and information on how to get in touch with the team if you need to. Did want to quickly shout out Sage University as well. You can do anything on here from bite-sized learning to full certifications, really just do it at your own pace. It is totally free to make an account. So if you haven't already, go to sageu.com, create your free account and have a little look about when you have a second. Hi again, everyone. I really hope you found today's session useful. We're going to be closing the session down soon. We've not had any further questions just as of yet. As you exit, you will see a short survey. You can take a moment to fill that out. We really would love to hear what you've thought, what worked well, what could be improved, so we can keep making these even better for you. You'll also receive a follow-up email later today. It'll have a link to the webinar recording on there and information on how to register for future sessions as well. So thanks again from me and Duncan. Goodbye for now.